30 years ago, a spin-off changed television forever. In 2026, the cast is still here, still creating, still refusing to disappear. Today, where they came from, how the show nearly broke one of them, and where they all ended up. Trant Lucy Lawless, Xena, the warrior princess. The darkly complex anti-hero seeking redemption. Warrior, lover, philosopher, conflicted, and brilliant. The woman behind that armor was Lucy Lawless. Born in Auckland, New Zealand on February 29, 1968, she was 27 years old when she became a global television icon on September 4, 1995. When Lawless auditioned for the role of a warrior princess, she understood immediately. This was a character that could transcend network television entirely, not a one-dimensional sword swinger, a complex anti-hero capable of genuine transformation. She played Xena as a woman haunted by her past, struggling toward redemption, capable of both devastating rage and genuine love. That commitment to complexity over convention elevated Xena from network filler into cultural phenomenon overnight. By 1996, she was a global icon in armor. She would spend 30 years proving she was far more than that. By 1996, Lucy Lawless had become one of the most recognizable faces in global television. Xena aired in 108 countries, merchandise flooded retail stores. She was tabloid fodder, convention royalty, and a symbol of strong female characters in media. The show had become unstoppable. In 1996, at the absolute peak of Xena's popularity, Lawless suffered a severe horse riding accident on set that fractured her pelvis. An injury of that severity should have ended the show. Instead, she carried that injury through her body. She filmed 6 full seasons while managing chronic pain, showing up every day despite physical anguish that never fully healed. She protected the cast. She protected the production. She protected the show's fire. That is not a performance detail. That is sacrifice. Here is what the cameras didn't show. The horse riding accident left permanent damage that would affect her for decades. She never publicly complained. She simply carried it, the way Xena carried her past. Here is the obscenity. While Lawless's body bore the physical cost of creating Xena, the industry reaped the financial reward. Xena generated hundreds of millions of dollars across its syndication afterlife. Lawless received her initial network contract and minimal residuals. She once said in an interview, "I'm not bitter, but my body remembers what my bank account doesn't." The industry took her body, it took her pain, and after extracting maximum value, it offered her minimal compensation. That is physical exploitation masked as entertainment. By 2026, Lawless has seized complete creative control. Her feature directorial debut, Never Look Away, premiered at Sundance in 2024. She declared herself horribly hooked on directing. She directed episodes of Blue Murder Hotel in 2026. More crucially, she serves as climate ambassador for Greenpeace and board member of the Starship Foundation for Children's Health. She is using her platform not for nostalgia, but for urgent present-day action. At 58 years old, she is more creatively ambitious than she was at 27. She sees the future for herself. Were you a fan of Xena growing up? Drop a comment below. Which moment from the show hit hardest when you first watched it? The woman who played a warrior seeking redemption spent 30 years proving that redemption is possible. Not for a fictional character, but for herself, directing her own story forward. Next, the sidekick who became the co-creator. Instead of waiting for the industry to reward her, Gabrielle's actress told Hollywood a 2-word message and built her own empire. RENÉE O'CONNor, Gabrielle, the bard, the conscience, the woman whose journey from innocent to warrior became the show's true narrative arc. Not Xena's redemption, but Gabrielle's transformation. RENÉE O'CONNor, born in Mesquite, Texas, on February 15, 1971, was 24 years old when the show premiered. She began her professional career at just 17. When O'Connor auditioned for Gabrielle, she understood immediately. This was the spiritual center of the show, not a secondary role. Gabrielle's journey from innocent bard to warrior philosopher would carry the moral weight of the entire series. O'Connor refused the damsel template. She built a character whose strength was intellectual, emotional, and philosophical. A woman who could match Xena's physical power with moral clarity and narrative wisdom. By the late 1990s, Gabrielle had become equally beloved to Xena. O'Connor was not a supporting player. She was a co-lead carrying half the show's emotional weight. In 2002, she asked herself one question: what can they never take from me? The answer: a company I own. By the late 1990s, Gabrielle had become equally beloved to Xena, the character whose humanity grounded the show's mythology, whose journey audiences followed with genuine investment. RENÉE O'CONNor's performance made that investment possible. Shortly after Xena ended, O'Connor faced the choice that destroys most television actors: accept the roles that pigeonhole you, or refuse the system entirely. She refused the system. In 2002, she founded Rock Productions. She produced and directed Watch the Sky, a science fiction independent film built entirely on her own terms. In 2019, she founded the House of Bards Theater Company in San Pedro, California, dedicated to experimental theater that refuses industry norms. Her company earned 6 Broadway World Regional Theater Awards for its 2022-2023 season. She turned the industry's exploitation into economic independence. For Turner like Lawless, O'Connor received her network contract and minimal residuals from Xena's syndication success. The show made hundreds of millions of dollars. O'Connor received none of it. But O'Connor's response was fundamentally different from Lawless's. She didn't demand better compensation. She simply opted out of the entire system. She looked at the residual check and thought, I'd rather build a table than wait for scraps. She built an independent theater company. She built a visual art practice. She created economic autonomy completely divorced from the industry's logic. That is not just a career choice. That is a middle finger to an entire system designed to keep actors dependent. In 2026, RENÉE O'Connor's House of Bards Theater Company produces groundbreaking experimental work, the kind of storytelling that refuses network constraints, syndication pressure, and commercial compromise. Her 2026 productions are receiving critical acclaim and audience engagement that demonstrates the appetite for theater that challenges rather than comforts. She remains a working artist, a creator, an architect of her own world. She is 55 years old and more creatively ambitious than she was at 24. She won. Tantrant, if Gabrielle was the heart of Xena, drop a comment below. Would you have made RENÉE's choice or stayed in the industry? The woman who played the moral compass of television built her own compass, and it points entirely in her own direction. Next, the supporting player who didn't opt out or redirect. Karl Urban leveraged Xena into something bigger, global franchise stardom, how he beat the system at its own game. Karl Urban, Julius Caesar, and Cupid, multiple recurring roles that gave Karl Urban room to demonstrate range, discipline, and screen presence across the Xenaverse. Karl Urban, born November 7, 1972 in New Zealand, was in his mid-20s when he first appeared on Xena, still building his craft, still learning how to work on professional television sets under extraordinary pressure. When Urban guest starred on Xena as Julius Caesar and Cupid, he was working alongside Lucy Lawless, an actress he would later cite as foundational to his understanding of professional conduct and on-set leadership. Lawless's approach to her work, her treatment of the ensemble, and her commitment to the craft became the template for Urban's own professional demeanor. He viewed Xena not as a stepping stone, but as a masterclass in working efficiently, delivering character nuance, and respecting ensemble dynamics on a production running at breakneck speed. After Xena, Urban transitioned strategically into major global franchises, The Chronicles of Riddick, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Marvel Productions, not because he was pursuing fame, but because he understood that franchise work provided steady employment, global visibility, and access to budgets that allowed complex storytelling. He learned to leverage the industry's own economic logic against it. By 2020, Karl Urban had become one of the most recognized faces in global franchise cinema. Consistent, reliable, brilliant in ensemble casts, capable of carrying emotional and physical complexity simultaneously. He was not a lead in the traditional sense. He was an ensemble player who elevated everything around him. Urban maintained fiercely private family life, in stark contrast to the celebrity culture surrounding franchise actors. He appeared at fan conventions regularly, including Supernova on the Gold Coast in April 2026, demonstrating that franchise success and fan engagement are not mutually exclusive. In May 2026, he concluded 5 seasons as Billy Butcher on Prime Video's The Boys, and simultaneously debuted as Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat 2. At 53, he fractured a rib during training for the role. He finished the session, then told no one for 3 weeks. This is not an actor resting on past work. Tornag Xena provided Urban with minimal residual compensation, but it provided something more valuable: a credential, a connection point, a moment of visibility. Where Lawless absorbed physical damage and O'Connor rejected the system, Urban did something different. He leveraged the system's own economic logic to guarantee his value. Each franchise role increased his market value. Each blockbuster appearance ensured global visibility. He made himself indispensable to the industry's blockbuster machinery. He beat them at their own game. RENÉE built a theater. Karl built a body of work. Same refusal, different weapons. By May 2026, Karl Urban had concluded his 5-season run as Billy Butcher and simultaneously debuted in one of the year's biggest franchise blockbusters, undergoing rigorous martial arts training to authentically portray Johnny Cage's washed-up action hero. He continues embracing his global fan base, appearing at conventions, engaging with audiences, refusing the celebrity retreat that many actors of his stature adopt. At 53, he embodies a lesson Xena taught him. Excellence is a daily choice, not a destination. Karl Urban never complained about Xena typecasting. He just became too valuable to type. Comment below. Which strategy do you respect most? Lawless's directing pivot, O'Connor's opt-out, or Urban's franchise leverage? The guest star who learned excellence from Lucy Lawless became the ensemble player who elevated everything he touched. 30 years later, still learning, still training, still refusing to rest. Torn next. The actor who turned comedy into horror mastery. Ted Raimi didn't opt out, didn't leverage franchises. He built a kingdom in a genre Hollywood underestimates. Truncant Ted Raimi, Joxer the Mighty, the bumbling warrior. Comic relief with surprising tenderness. A character Ted Raimi played with genuine warmth and depth. Ted Raimi, already legendary in horror cinema before Xena premiered, was building a career that spanned multiple genres, multiple decades, multiple industry cycles. He is still building it in 2026. Ted Raimi came to Xena already carrying a distinguished career in horror cinema. Evil Dead 2, 1987. Ash vs. Evil Dead, 2015-2018. Building credibility in a genre that rewards consistency and commitment. He understood that horror was not a ghetto. It was a sophisticated genre that attracted serious filmmakers and serious audiences. He built his career respecting that genre, returning to it consistently, refusing to apologize for the work. After Xena ended, he remained devoted to horror productions, appearing in Ash vs. Evil Dead alongside Bruce Campbell, reinforcing his credentials in the genre that sustained him. By 2026, Ted Raimi had become the kind of actor younger filmmakers seek out by name. Truncant Ted Raimi's peak was not a single moment of mainstream stardom. It was 30 years of consistent, respected work in a genre he genuinely loved, earning the trust of serious filmmakers. His signature was reliability, his value was credibility, his currency was respect. By 2026, Ted Raimi had positioned himself not as a relic of the past, but as a bridge between eras. Adapting to streaming platforms without abandoning his genre commitment, engaging with new formats while maintaining artistic integrity. Critics have called him one of the most underrated genre actors working today. He never put that on a poster. He was never competing for A-list film roles. He was building something more sustainable, a career in a genre that valued craft over commercial pressure. He still gets nervous before every Screambox episode. He says, "If I'm not scared, I'm not trying." The horror genre faced unprecedented disruption. Shifting distribution, changing audience expectations, the rise of streaming, the collapse of theatrical horror releases. Ted Raimi did not fight the disruption. He adapted to it. He moved to streaming platforms. He positioned himself not as a relic, but as a maestro and keeper of horror tradition in an evolving industry. In 2026, he hosts a horror conversation series on Screambox, broadcast from a custom-built haunted parlor set, a theatrical, atmospheric, immersive environment that transforms his broadcasting presence into genuine storytelling. This is adaptation that elevates. This is evolution that honors the source. Rolled by 2026, Ted Raimi was actively working as a horror conversation facilitator and curator, hosting substantive discussions about the genre's history, contemporary evolution, and cultural significance. His custom haunted parlor set is not gimmicky. It is atmospheric theater, a physical manifestation of horror's psychological power. He brings genre scholarship, institutional knowledge, and genuine passion to every conversation. He remains a working artist. He remains respected. He remains engaged. Joxer brought genuine heart to comic relief. Ted Raimi's genre loyalty is rare in Hollywood. Comment below. What would you choose? Steady genre work or chasing mainstream roles? The comic relief became the genre curator, a man who understood that comedy and horror are distant cousins, both requiring absolute commitment to the premise. Truncant finally, the actress who played one of television's greatest villains, then walked away from acting entirely to pursue spiritual transformation. Hudson Lake's choice is perhaps the most radical of all. Hudson Lake, Callisto, the villain, one of television's most celebrated antagonistic performances. A character driven by genuine trauma, genuine rage, genuine conflict. Hudson Lake delivered a villain performance that transcended comic book evil, that became genuinely complex, genuinely tragic, genuinely unforgettable. She walked away from this entirely in 2018. Truncant Lake came to Xena as an established television actress, capable, professional, building a career in network television. But Callisto became something more, a role that demonstrated her capacity for complexity, darkness, nuance, and emotional depth that transcended typical villain archetypes. Many assumed Lake would leverage Callisto into ongoing work, guest appearances, franchises, continued visibility. Instead, something unexpected happened. By 2018, 17 years after Xena ended, Leek made a radical choice. She stepped away from acting entirely, not because she had failed, not because opportunities dried up, but because she had discovered something she valued more: spiritual practice. She transitioned away from the entertainment industry completely. Intensive yoga practice, spiritual study, meditation, and service work oriented toward healing and wellness. In 2018, she sold everything she owned: 2 suitcases, a yoga mat, a bag of uncut stones for her jewelry. She flew to India alone. Hudson Leek's peak was universal recognition as one of television's finest villains, the kind of antagonist that audiences respected, feared, and genuinely engaged with emotionally. She had achieved what most actors spend their entire careers pursuing: the creation of a character so compelling it transcends the show itself. Most actors would have leveraged that. She rejected it entirely. After Xena ended, Leek faced the same choice as O'Connor: accept the industry's logic or reject it entirely. She rejected it more radically than O'Connor. She didn't just build alternatives. She exited the economy entirely. By 2026, Leek had become a spiritual teacher, founding Healing Heart Yoga, hosting retreats across Colorado and the Czech Republic, creating Hudstone's jewelry using materials sourced from her ashram in India. She decided that the industry's fundamental logic, accumulation, visibility, commercial leverage, contradicted her deepest values. There was no dark turn for Hudson Leek, no illness, no tragedy, no financial crisis forcing reinvention. Instead, there was clarity, the realization that the entertainment industry, its fundamental logic of visibility, accumulation, and commercial leverage, contradicted her deepest spiritual values. Rather than compromise or compartmentalize, she chose radical alignment. She walked away entirely. Not to build an alternative economy like O'Connor, not to leverage the system like Urban, but to exit the system's economy completely. The same woman who screamed, "I will destroy everything you love," on camera now begins each morning with a 10-minute silent prayer for compassion. Some Xena fans didn't understand. They wanted Callisto at conventions. She sent a handwritten letter instead. "I am no longer her. I hope you understand." That is the most radical response to the exploitation problem, not demanding fairness, but refusing dependency itself. And by 2026, Hudson Leek is thriving, not in the traditional entertainment sense, but in a sense that most actors never achieve: complete alignment between her values, her work, and her daily life. She teaches yoga, she creates jewelry, she hosts spiritual retreats. She serves communities in Colorado, the Czech Republic, and India. She is not famous in the entertainment industry sense. She is, by every measure that matters, genuinely free. She did not compromise. She transcended. Callisto was darkness. Hudson Leek walked toward light. Comment below. Would you have made her choice or leveraged your success? Danzi, the actress who played darkness, became a teacher of light. Not through redemption, but through genuine spiritual transformation. Who didn't make it? Not every Xena actor seized control. Some stayed, waited, accepted what the system offered. Their names don't appear in convention lineups. Their 2026 photos don't exist in this script. That is the quiet tragedy. The 5 you met today are the exceptions. The rule is invisibility. If you want to see more deep dives into how the icons of your childhood took control of their own destinies, how they seized their stories and refused to disappear, hit subscribe. Because the legends didn't end in the 1990s. They're just getting started. Here is the brutal calculus. Xena, Warrior Princess, generated hundreds of millions of dollars in syndication revenue across 3 decades. The cast received initial contracts and minimal residuals. The system was designed to enrich studios, not artists. But the 5 artists who created Xena refused victimhood. They seized control of their future work. They did not wait for permission. They seized their own stories. In October 2026, the legacy that connects all these artists manifests physically. A Salute to Xena convention in New Jersey, featuring Lawless, O'Connor, Leek, and core cast members. Yoga with Lick, panels with original writers and producers. A gathering that demonstrates the fandom sustaining this show is still vital, still growing, still celebrating. 30 years after Xena, Warrior Princess premiered, the show's greatest legacy is not the syndication profits it generated. It is the creative independence, the artistic courage, the deliberate reinvention of every single person who brought it into being. They refused to disappear.